Hello, my name is Alex Siminiuc, and I thank you for coming this afternoon for this presentation. No volume? No volume. So what should I do? It is on.
Try again.
That's just a mic for the camera. It's not.
Yep.
The sound.
That's so that there's no sound.
Okay.
We don't have a. Do you have a mic today? No sound system.
So should I go ahead or wait a little bit?
Yeah. Just
Do what I do?
use your good big room voice. There you go.
Okay. So the presentation is about essential skills for test automation and for load testing. And a few words about myself. I'm working in testing since 2005. I'm a freelance tester in my spare time with utest.com. And then I had all sorts of jobs in QA for different companies like autotrader.ca, Yellow Pages Group, PHSA, YVR, Tech Resources. I am experienced with manual testing for all sorts of applications. I also do some test automation, API testing, load testing. And I teach a test automation course for WebDriver and Java for testers that don't have development skills. So that's just a few words about what I do and who I am. And there will be two parts in the presentation. Most of the time I will just speak about test automation, just a few words about load testing, because the same principle applies for both. So I meet manual testers, I cannot say every day, but every week. And when I talk to them about what do they want to do next in their careers, what do they want to learn, some of them say mobile testing, some of them say that they want to learn load testing, but most of them want to learn test automation. That's something that lots of manual testers want to get into somehow. And many companies are interested in hiring manual testers that have test automation skills, experience, knowledge, like Optimus, for example. And the situation is that there are not many manual testers that know test automation. Most of the manual testers that I know would like to get started in test automation, but they don't know how. They don't know how to get started, how to learn that, which is very, very interesting. Like, the opportunities are on the market, but manual testers are not ready for taking them. And it's a question that I was asking myself, why is this happening? I mean, why don't we have on the market more manual testers that have test automation skills? I mean, what's stopping manual testers from starting with test automation? I had to choose a framework for test automation for this presentation, and I chose the Selenium framework, Selenium WebDriver. However, what you will see in the next slides applies easily to other test automation frameworks, like if you will want to do test automation with QTP or with RunRex or with other tools. Whatever you see in these slides applies I think to a high degree, even if you want to do, let's say, mobile test automation. Okay. So there are not many manual testers that do test automation, and these are the reasons why there are not so many people knowing it. Like, to learn test automation is basically learning a new job. It's like it's not learning a skill, it's learning a new job. You will learn to become a developer. And test automation means that you will not learn one thing only, you will have to learn a multitude of things. There are multiple things that you need to understand, and you need to understand well, because they kind of depend on each other. So it's not just knowing how the test automation framework works, It's not just knowing how the tool works. You need to know other things. And then, obviously, learning test automation, learning a new job will take time. And this can be, at least 6 months, probably, maybe even more. And the last reason is that because there are so many things that need to be learned and understood well, you need to have a process for learning them. Like, how do you learn them? Where do you start? Where do you go next? What way do you take through all of these skills that you need for doing test automation? So what skills do you need for test automation? Record and play is not one of them. There are many tools, vendor tools on the market that advertise that you get the tool and then the manual testers will be able to do test automation in a matter of hours or days. And that's only partially true. Like, test automation means that you shouldn't use record and play at all. These are some of the things that you need for test automation. So you need, and again, I will talk about test automation for websites. Because the application will run into a browser, you need to understand some things about how browsers work. And then you need to understand some HTML, because HTML is used for building the site. You need to understand some CSS. You need to have some knowledge of programming with Java. You need to understand how the Selenium framework works and what are its components. The communication between the browser and the web server happens over HTTP, so you need to have some knowledge about HTTP, how that works. The development will happen into an environment. You need to understand that environment to a certain degree, Eclipse. And then JUnit is another component. The more advanced you get, then you will need to learn about code refactoring. You will need to learn some object-oriented programming. So multiple things, right? All of these contribute to proper test automation. Now, how do you learn all of these things? Which one do you start with, and where do you go next? Does it matter where you start? I read a while ago about this process, which is called challenge yourself just above your current skill set. And I thought it makes a lot of sense for learning new skills. And it doesn't make sense only for test automation. You can use it for learning any new skill, like load testing or playing guitar or swimming or whatever you want. And what it means is that you should always, when you try to learn a new skill, start where you are at the present moment, and then just push yourself a little bit above your current level. So let's say if your current level is manual testing, you test websites, you push yourself and you try to learn how websites are built. Let's say you try to learn about HTML. And again, it's not something that I invented. I read about it in a book written by Stephen King, who was writing about, writing. And that's how he became the writer that he is these days. He started with writing some very simple articles for some magazines, simple magazines, and then he tried to write for more advanced magazines, and then so on and so forth, right? So how do you use this for test automation? How does this make any sense in the context of test automation? Well, let's say you are a manual tester and you test websites, lots of websites, right? And you want to get to test automation. So you know well how websites work in the browser, and that's your current level. And then the next thing that you can learn is you learn more about browsers. You learn about the security of browsers, you learn about different types of browsers, you investigate how different settings of browsers work, about sessions, about cookies, and then you just learn that until you understand it pretty well. Then as soon as you understand how browsers work, then you can try to learn about HTTP, how the communication between the browser and the website goes. And you can learn about what different types of web requests are, what is a GET request, what is a POST request, about different types of URLs, about URL parameters, about encoding of parameters, decoding of parameters. So that should be the level exactly about this level. And then you can learn some HTML. You don't have to become an expert here, and you don't have to become an expert there. You just have to learn enough so that you understand how this works and how this works. And then you progress to next level, which will be learn a little bit about HTML and learn about CSS. Learn about different types of HTML elements and about tags and about attributes, about all of those things. And as soon as you get to a pretty decent level with HTML, you move to the next level, which will be you investigate the browser plugins. Let's say for Firefox, you investigate Firebug, and then Firepath, and then Firecookie, and then see how those things work. And then you move to the next level, which will be a language that will allow you to find elements of a website, and that's XPath. So learn some XPath, then this will be like a big step here from XPath. You will need some basics of Java, because test automation is about writing code, right? It's not anything else, it's just writing code that will implement your test cases. So you learn some basics of Java, and then as soon as you have a good understanding of basic components of a Java application, then you get comfortable with the Java API, make sure that you know how to use different classes from different packages, and then Eclipse would be the next level. You need to understand how the environment for creating Java projects work. You need to get comfortable with writing the code, debugging the code, running the code. Then you go and you investigate the WebDriver framework. WebDriver framework being the test automation framework. And just look at what components are in that framework and which component can be used for interacting with different HTML elements. Then you learn more Java, specifically some object-oriented concepts, like how you build a class, how you create objects, what inheritance is, what polymorphism is. And then you learn a little bit about page object model, and then I think after you learn all of these things, you should be pretty good with test automation. Now, you don't have to wait with practicing test automation until the end. As soon as you get, let's say, up to there, WebDriver framework, you can start creating some simple scripts. And then your scripts will become better and better as soon as you incorporate some object-oriented concepts and page object model into them. So challenge yourself about your current level, right? So your current level is here, then you learn this first, and then you learn this next, and so on and so forth. If you jump from here over there to WebDriver framework and you don't know any Java, it will not make a lot of sense, right? Or if you jump from here, let's say you go directly to XPath, if you don't know anything about HTML, XPath might be a little bit tricky to learn, right? So by by learning all the time something that is right above your current level, you just build the knowledge that you will need on the next steps, right? So when you get to WebDriver framework, you kind of like know a lot of things that will be useful for writing the test automation scripts. So I think this is a pretty logical and pretty clear way of how to approach test automation, like going from manual testing and then just going up. And obviously, you know, this is just a simplification, that there may be other things that you will need to learn. Again, remember, doing test automation is like learning development. So at some point you'll need to do code refactoring, you'll need to look into source control and other things, right? And this is a screenshot that shows you in Eclipse how different things come together. So you have XPath expressions, you have commands that come from the WebDriver framework, you have Java code, you have JUnit, you have browsers, drivers for different browsers. Now, what are all of these things? XPath is a language that primarily was invented for searching in XML documents. And it can be used for searching HTML elements from a web page. And for that purpose, you can use browser plugins. So this is Firebug here, and the Firepath component of Firebug, where you just type an XPath expression, and then you get the HTML code for the element that is mapped, and you can see the element highlighted on the left side. Eclipse is the environment where you will create your projects. And in Eclipse, you will create your project, you will create the code for your test automation scripts. You can execute the test scripts in Eclipse, but you can execute them outside of Eclipse. But for sure, the code development happens in there, so you need to understand how it works. And this is Eclipse. And the some sample code for test automation. And JUnit is a unit testing framework. So developers, when they write their code, if they use Java, not C#, they can use JUnit as a framework for building all of the unit tests. The unit tests will verify that the code works correctly or doesn't work correctly, right? And in the context of test automation, JUnit is very useful because it allows the tester or developer to create different test scripts for different test cases, scripts that can be completely independent. And what you get after building your scripts, when you run all of them, you will get an execution status like the one from the left side. And the execution status will tell you if each script passed or failed in that manner. So this is originally a unit testing framework, but it is extremely useful for test automation. Then the Java API, right? Your test scripts will be built using Java code, and in many scripts you need to, let's say, read information from an XML document, or you need to read data from a SQL server, from a SQL database, or you need to I don't know, use lists, for example. So for all of these, you will need to use classes that are part of the Java API. The Java API is vast. It's very, very big. You don't need to learn all of it, but from time to time, you may need different classes from different packages for specific purposes. And then the WebDriver API, this is again a framework. It is structured in the same way as the Java API, packages, and then in packages you will have classes. And in here you can find all of the classes that are part of the framework. Most important classes would be web element that will allow you to interact with buttons or links or checkboxes or radio buttons or labels from a web page. And in here on this page, you can get details about each specific class. You just click on one of them and then you will see everything that is inside of it. Firebug and Firepath. So these are very useful mostly for looking into how the web page is built. Like what are all of the components of the page, what is the HTML code for different elements. And then Firepath will allow you to build the expressions that will find different elements from the page. Page object is something that will make your scripts look very well. They will be easy to read. They will be easy to maintain. You will be able to reuse the code a lot. And what it means basically is that in your application you should build classes that match different pages or components of pages of the website. So, and then the HTML DOM is just a tree structure that is built while the browser reads the information from the page. So all of these are components or skills that you need when you do test automation. And I'm going back here, and see, this is how they work together. Like, you need JUnit over there so that you can have independent test scripts that will implement test cases. In test automation, one of the rules to follow is that if you have multiple test scripts, they should be completely independent from each other. So one script should not depend on the result of another script. And JUnit makes that easy. Then you need to write code, so the code can be Java. It doesn't have to be Java, it can be C#, or it can be Ruby, or Python, whatever is easier for you to learn. Then the WebDriver API basically comes as a set of classes, and these are just some sort of commands. And when you want to find an element from a page, for example, a text box, you need to specify an expression here. And that expression will find a specific text box. So that's what XPath does. So this screenshot shows how different things come together, right? And again, if you don't use XPath here, then the other things will not work. If you do not use JUnit, the other things will not work. So everything works together, right? And because everything works together, and a lot of times one component adds information on top of another component, that's why this is a good process for learning test automation. Because when you get over there, let's say WebDriver framework, you know some Java, so you can start using different classes from the framework. You know what JUnit is, you can start putting together some simple test scripts. You have some knowledge of Eclipse, you have some basics of Java, you know what XPath is. It makes sense. You can look at this in a different way. Like if you like working on puzzles, say you start from a chord, you have like 1,000 pieces for a large puzzle, like the ones my daughter likes to work on. And then you start somewhere, and then obviously, I mean, one approach would be you try to find pieces that will match with what you have, right? And then you just add around a few more pieces around the initial piece, and then you keep doing that. Add layers that come right after other layers, which is very similar to this. Now, test automation again is about becoming a developer, right? So if you are really interested in test automation, think about, this being like a new job for you. So you will have kind of like two hats, like the tester hat and then the developer hat, and you can change them whenever your job requires it, right? So this process, it's a learning process, right? And it's not about test automation. I mean, if you want to learn guitar like I do, it's the same type of learning. Or if you want to learn swimming, same type of process. Or any let's say new skill, that thing works. Again, I heard about it from this book called On Writing, and the process was just used by Stephen King for becoming a writer, right? So you can apply a similar type of process for load testing. Let's say you want to get into load testing, you are a manual tester, and you want to do performance testing. And you can do something like this as well. So again, you start with manual testing, and then you have a similar step, second step, with the test automation slide. You have to understand how browsers work, because you are doing load testing or performance testing for a website. The website works in a browser. You need to understand something about the browser. Then you need to understand how the communication protocol used for the data exchange between the browser and the server works. Then you should see how a web proxy works, so that you can see the details of all of the requests sent from the browser to the website, and responses coming back from the server. Then you need to learn some HTML basics, browser plugins, again XPath. So what's interesting is that if you compare this part here with the same steps from test automation, a lot of things repeat, right? So XPath is used for load testing, but test automation uses it as well. Browser plugins are used in both places, HTML, HTTP protocol, how browsers work. You will find them in test automation, you will find them in performance testing for websites. Now, regular expressions are good to learn. They are good to learn for test automation as well. Then some basics of Java. You need probably less knowledge of Java than for test automation, but some. Then you look into the tool. The tool is not very complicated. JMeter in this case. Then you investigate the different components of the tool, like samplers and listeners and controllers. From there, you can look into server monitoring a little bit, understand how that happens, how that's being done, and then a little bit about logging. And finally, you can look into JMeter agents. And that's, again, I think a pretty good summary of what you need for load testing. And it's the same type of process. You go from where you are to the next level. Next level is obviously above your current level, so it will be a little bit of a stretch, but not a huge stretch, right? It's not like going from here and then do this, right? So from here to there is a little bit of distance, not very big, right? And then again, a small distance here, small distance here. So that's a good way of doing this. And again, this is just an example for the same process, which means just push yourself a little bit above what you know. And then as soon as you get to the new point, push yourself a little bit above what you know and keep going, right? This takes, again, time, like becoming a developer so you can do test automation, or learning load testing takes time, and the people from Code Core can explain how much time this takes. They do boot camps of 8 weeks, which basically means every day from 9 to 5 or 7, they work on Ruby and Ruby on Rails with the goal of being a developer after 8 weeks, right? So I'm not saying that you need to work on these things every day for 8 weeks, but it requires effort and then some time. And results will not be there like in a week or two, probably in a few months. If you are interested in learning about all of these things, and I'm talking about the test automation ones, I'm teaching this course that will teach you everything that you saw so far. So if you are interested in something like this, I can provide details after the presentation. And that's about it. Now, if you want to see this presentation again, I will post it on my site tomorrow. So you can just go and then just go through it as many times as you want. And I know that Optimus will have a video of the presentation as well available in a few days. So you can watch this again anytime you want. If you guys have any questions, we can.
Questions for Alex?
Yeah. Question over here.
You can stand up. Thanks.
Hi. I wanted to know if you had a similar course for load testing.
I do. Yeah. So if you are interested in load testing, I do that as well. I don't do it as often as the test automation course, because less people are interested in that topic. But yes, I do.
What approach do you take that's different when you're doing non-web dev testing? I mean, if you're focusing more on API level automation,
Yeah.
do you have a different approach for getting the knowledge and figuring out what to test, how to test?
For non-web, for test automation.
Yeah, for doing API level testing as opposed to web.
So let's go back to the slide where that here. So when I said that these slides apply to other test automation frameworks, what I meant was that, so let's take a test automation framework like Ranorex. Ranorex is like a test automation tool built in Austria that is very similar with QTP, and you can use it for websites, client tools, client server tools, mobile apps. So there is, let's say you want to use it for a client application, right? Not for a website. Well, you don't need to learn about the browser, you don't need to learn about how HTTP works. You don't need to learn about that, you don't need to learn about that. Each test automation tool comes with some sort of version of this, of XPath, right? Then, in the case of that test automation tool, you will need to learn some basics of C#. So again, same step here. Then you will need to learn how to interact with the APIs that come from Microsoft for C#. Then you will need to learn about the IDE. The IDE can be the tool which allows you to write the code inside of it, or you can use Visual Studio, right? JUnit, you can use whatever unit testing framework from Microsoft. They have their own framework. Again, packages and classes that tell you how to interact with different types of elements. More programming, and then page object models. So most of these still apply if you take these four away, because you said that you want to focus on non-web, right? Like, let's say a client tool. So same thing.
But you use a similar process of building knowledge.
Same process, exactly, same process. Oh, I can give you details after we finish with the questions. Oh, the class for the course or the class for? Yeah, I'll give you details after the questions are done. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yep.
How about the mobile application specification? Is this something different, or do you have any specific course for them, or they are?
It's if you look at this, if you want to learn mobile test automation, this applies as well. No, I don't have something for mobile. I'm thinking about doing that, but I don't have something ready for the moment. But if you want to learn mobile test automation, let's say Android test automation, well, there is no browser, there is no HTTP. It's useful to understand how the device works. It's useful to understand how the operating system works, right? For the Android devices. There is something equivalent with Firebug that allows you to look into the structure of an application and see what are the components. And I think in that equivalent of Firebug, you can build some sort of expressions to find different components in a page of an application. You still need Java API, Eclipse, JUnit. The WebDriver framework will be different. I think for Android it's called UI Automator or something from Google. More Java is important, page object model is important. So this applies to Android test automation for sure. Because when you do test automation, you need to write code, right? You need to use a framework for that specific type of application. Like for a website, Selenium works, WebDriver. For Android, UI Automator works. For vendor tools, they have their own frameworks. Like QTP comes with its own framework, Ranorex comes with its own framework. The process is the same. Yeah, and a lot of things, kind of repeat. So let's say you learn how to do test automation for a website. when you make the change to doing Android test automation, the learning curve will be extremely small because you already know this and that and that and that. You know how to use the framework, so the learning should be very fast. Sorry.
So we have a team of varying skill levels that we're trying to level up with test automation. And I'm wondering, how do you teach a group of the varying skill levels and keep everyone involved at the different stages through a process like this?
So when you say different levels, what does that mean? Like some people know development, some people don't know.
Some are a little stronger than others. They have a little bit more technical background. Some are purely manual.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how to teach a team of people that have different levels in the same time.
Other questions for Alex?
For me, so far, when I did that, when I taught a course, I mean, most of the people were kind of like at the same level. Like most of the people were like, I'm a manual tester, never done any programming, I don't have too much technical knowledge, I want to do test automation, right? So everybody was kind of like at the same level, and then teaching people that are at the same level is a little bit easier. There are some challenges there because some people learn faster than others, right? And you have to keep everybody interested. But if one guy knows a lot of development, another one doesn't know anything, good challenge.
Other questions?
Well, if you have any questions after this presentation, my email address is, I think, on the last page, right here, and that's my blog. The presentation, you will find it on this site tomorrow. And if you want to discuss about test automation, I'm always glad to help. If you are interested in the course, I can provide more details after this.
Because about the course, everybody, I guess, lots of people would be interested.
Yep.
Can you talk about the course with
Sure. So should we stop or should I keep going or?
If there's other questions, absolutely, please answer away. Never a stopping point when there's still questions.
Yeah, so the course basically will kind of like, the question was about the course that I'm teaching about this. How does that work, right? So how it works is you start here and then you go up and you finish there. That's how it goes. Start date and end date are flexible. Depends on people that are interested. Depends on how many people are interested. It typically happens once every week or once every second week, right? And it's an online course. It's like happening over the internet. So there is like a session every second week with a presentation. Then after the presentation, you can watch the video again when you want. You can work on homework. If you have problems, we can discuss about your problems and then just keep you finishing the homework, and then that just repeats, right?
Now you have a blog, you have a website. Is that possible we talk to you this?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So if you want to talk to me after this, just email me. If you want to talk to me during the course happens online, right? So through like one of those collaboration tools. So you just need like a headset and the microphone. And yeah, absolutely, we can talk through the course as well.
Monday to Friday or?
No, it's more like a weekend thing. Yeah.
How long is it last?
It's probably 10 sessions.
Yeah.
So one session every second week, or every week if you can go fast.
How much roughly?
It's around $200.
Huh?
$200.
Oh, it's really reasonable. And
I think so.
just many
Yeah.
testing.
I think we are done, right? Yeah.